Welcome back to Interviews with the Pros, the podcast where we sit down with the people shaping corporate events from every angle, not just the planners, but the experts in the industry we've had the pleasure to work with at KCI. We'll speak with strategists, marketing executives, global event leaders, entrepreneurs, technologists, and all kinds of specialists in the different areas that make the industry move. I'm your host, Kimberly Clark, CEO and founder of KCI Management and Maestra. With 3 decades in corporate events and thousands of programs behind me, I've learned that excellence doesn't live in one role. It lives across the ecosystem. Today, I'm joined by Heather Reid, founder and principal at Planner Protect. In this episode, we'll be talking about hotel contracts, but we'll be exploring beyond the obvious review of rates and concessions that planners typically get fixated on. We'll address the importance of the T's and C's and liabilities. This conversation offers a look into the benefits of professional advice for hotel contracts and insights you may not otherwise get exposure to if you stay in your own lane. Let's get into it. Okay, Heather, let's introduce each other, but let's make it fun. You know that childhood question you were asked when you were younger, what do you want to be when you grow up? Can you share with us what it is that you do now that you're grown up? And what was your answer when you were younger?
Hi, Kimberly. You know what? My whole world was music growing up. So it was about performing and piano, violin, singing. Well, I was viola, but singing, the whole thing. So I actually don't recall what I wanted to do because I only knew kind of music. But when I went off to university, I was in a music program and quickly discovered that's not for me. Took a geology course and fell in love, and then transitioned over universities and went into a master's of science in physical geography. So I actually started my career working on the environmental assessment for nuclear fuel waste disposal in the Arctic. So I worked for Ontario Hydro, and then that was back in the early 90s, and they did a really wide swath of cuts, and I was able to take a package and ended up, I answered a little tiny classified ad back when we were reading newspapers. It was 14
I remember
words.
those. Yeah.
Yep. 14 words. And it ended up, it was being the national administrator for the Canadian Association of Critical Care Nurses.
Okay.
And I ended up working for them for 7 years while I was home raising 2 little ones. And so I'm an accidental planner, and I know that you have a fond heart for those.
We sure do. Yeah.
Yeah, so I was an accidental planner, but I have been in the industry now since 94 and absolutely love it and can't imagine myself anywhere else. So, yeah.
Oh, I love that. And we're just barely grown up, right? Just barely.
Yeah.
I mean,
Oh, yeah.
you might have dated yourself a little bit with the
No, a
classified ad,
lot.
but I remember them. I'm right there with you. Totally
Yep.
remember those. Oh, that's
Yeah.
fantastic. Geology, I didn't know that about you. What an interesting
Yeah.
switch too.
Yep. It was.
Well,
It was a radical switch.
well, let's tell the audience how we know each other. Do you
Sure.
remember around when we met, how we met, and when we started working together in the industry?
Absolutely. You were my first major introduction done by a brilliant woman, Anthea Rowe, who uh, I was working with her at the time. I'd been planning for 20 years, but I knew that I wanted to do something more than planning. I was just absolutely drawn to the contract phasing of events. So venue contracts, speaker contracts. I loved that kind of nerdy academic stuff. And working with a business coach, thought, maybe I could provide this service because I had heard a planner say, I'd rather have a root canal than deal with a contract.
Contracts. Oh God,
So I
what's wrong
reached out
with you,
to,
Heather?
I know. So I reached out to
Crazy.
Anthea at the time, and she helped me come up with the name Planner Protect. She came up with my tagline, communications and words are her gift.
Yes.
And so then she made the introduction to you at KCI, and I have been supporting your team since July of 2017.
Is that when it was, Heather? Oh,
Yeah.
thank you for reminding me.
Yep.
And I
Yep.
remember, I mean, listen, straight to the punchline. We consider you our secret weapon. There's no question. I might have been the one that said the root canal part. Like, I mean, you're
No.
crazy for loving the contracts, but we love you for loving contracts. So that's wonderful. And I agree, Anthea's gifts are enormous, but she's also a contributor to this show and very strong. So we're certainly grateful for those introductions. And isn't that just the way our industry goes, right?
It is. It is.
And I think, Heather, what I remember about our work together is we reached out to you, or we took you up on that introduction initially because we know how to contract. We knew how to contract, we thought, right? We thought we were pretty good at it. We reached out to you because we were short on capacity. So we said,
Mhm.
wow, this would be a great way to scale. Introduce Heather. Heather can burn through some of our contracts. Quick, let's get them going. But the first one you delivered back to us, like red lines, notes. I mean, I think it was 17 pages of notes. And we were like, oh, we're missing a few things here. We're missing a few things. And Heather knows her stuff. And if I may, and correct me if I'm wrong, are you like one step down from a paralegal, Heather, in terms of contract review? Is that how I could describe you? Because that's how I
Well,
describe you, just so you know.
thank you. When COVID hit, I actually did go back to school. I did a 2-year paralegal studies program in a consolidated 1 year. And I actually was a licensed paralegal for probably 2 years. But paralegals in Canada, at least in Ontario and Canada, cannot work on contracts. So my whole purpose, and I knew that before I started, my whole purpose was to understand law better. I'm a ferocious learner. I'm always trying to be on top of what's happening with contract language and things like that. But it was just an opportunity to know more about the law and the principles in law. So I am a graduate of paralegal studies. I'm not anymore a licensed paralegal, but yeah, I love learning and I wanted to bring even more context and understanding to my clients. So,
Well, and so many of our listeners will be new to your work, right? As we
mhm.
talked about, we have the accidental planners, we have the emerging planners, and again, I'm so excited to have you introduced to this group because I really think there's so much that they can benefit and learn from working with you. And again, I can speak to our own career, and I mean, we still use you not only for
Yeah.
capacity but for excellence, and also you've taught our team. You've come up with training for our team, which we're grateful for. We obviously cover contracting in the Meister platform, and
Mhm.
I feature you and say, goodness, do it, engage Heather, know when you need to call in the pros. But for those who may be new to your work, will you walk us through what your business does? What
Mhm.
is the core problem you're helping to solve? 'Cause it's more than just rates and concessions, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. And I think there is a saying in the industry that planners check rates, dates, and space. And I
True.
think that's not because of a lack of desire to do anything else in a contract. There's a real lack of education around the content of a contract. When I started Planner Protect back in 2013, uh, I looked at the educational system, and unless you're doing a university level events program, contracts are not taught post secondary as part of the event planning or hospitality or things like that. So there's a real gap in knowledge. And so I wanted to support, I love planning and I had full service clients, I had associations as clients as an independent. But I realized that I could support a lot of planners if I was to do the contract part, which a lot of them did not enjoy. And so I started what I called a contract review service. So unlike the intermediaries in our industry, which are site selection, I was just a transparent flat fee. I will do the work to review the contract from a planner's perspective with now 32 years of planning under my belt, but really a dog to a bone about what protects the client. So when I set up my contract review services, I kind of visualized it 3 ways. One, secret weapon, as you said. So I'm in the
Absolutely.
background and only the event agency or event organizer knows that I'm involved. The second way is that sometimes I am venue facing, so I go alongside the planner or the event organizer with with them to the venue to negotiate. And then the third time is bring me the contract. I will do everything and bring you back a fully, ready to sign contract. Most of my business is as the quote secret weapon. And I love that because I love positioning agencies, organizations in a better place with the contract review service than it was going to be. Um, there's a lot of things. There's the gap in education, but there's also just bandwidth. Uh,
Totally.
and that's, as you said, you came to me because of
That's what started
bandwidth.
it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's you know, contracts are not a fast process. They take a
We'd like
lot
them to
of
be, and especially all of our clients want it to be, but
yeah.
you can't rush it. You're right.
No, you can't, and if you do rush it, quite often you are compromising on something.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
are if you rush, you are maybe taking on more risk than you needed to if you just need to get things signed, because contracts are really, really, truly not written to protect the event or the event organizer. They're written by the legal teams of the supplier partner to protect them. And it takes time and it takes knowledge and it takes confidence to be able to negotiate and get a more equal or more balanced contract. And a lot of planners are under pressure in so many different things that it's kind of like, maybe we'll just, take it as
They
it
just
is.
want it done.
Uh,
Oh, they just want it
yes,
done. They wanna move on to the
yes,
next thing. I talk a lot
absolutely.
about, as planners, sometimes we are by nature checks in boxes. Like, I just want to check. I just got to get on to the next thing. This is where your service is so beneficial to us because, yeah, our planners need to get on to the next thing while
Yep.
we know that we are in the trusted hands of Heather,
Mm,
watching out for us, for our clients, not taking on too much liability. I love that word you used, balance contract. So you said
yes. Yeah.
equalized. I love that too.
Yeah.
And the experience, right? I think in the mentorship that I do and the teaching that we do, you know, a lot of folks they just don't have the experience to know, oh, wait, I can ask for that. Oh, wait, I should accept that. Oh,
Yeah.
that's what that means.
Yeah.
Heather, that's where you are a pro, not only yours, but you have the benefit of having this bird's eye view across working with so many organizations, so many planners, so many corporate organizations, associations, that you have the view to say, hang on a second, this is industry standard. This
Yeah.
isn't.
Yeah.
So much a
I
secret weapon you are. I love it.
well, it's
I
been
love it.
interesting because even at times I'm able to two completely separate clients, but the same venue, and they're different contracts, and you kind of go, "Huh,
How is
why
that?
is it different?" And so, as you said, that bird's eye view and bringing the big picture to each client, that makes my heart sing. I love being able to show you everything that I think could improve the contract. And let's face it, Kim, we don't always get everything,
You're
right?
not
Like
going to get
there's
everything. No.
right, and clients don't necessarily need everything. Some clients are more risk adverse than others. Some are willing to, hey, let's just get it signed. We need to move on, and we'll absorb risk if we have to. Others are incredibly risk adverse, and it needs to be letter perfect for them to be able to move forward. So, yeah, I appreciate what you say, bringing all of those kind of North American contracts, because even though I'm based in Canada, a lot of my work through you and through others is American venues. And we have Canadian venues that have American brands.
Yeah.
So,
True, right?
right. So,
Yep.
and it's the same contract. So
Yeah.
yeah, I
Thank
love what
goodness
I
for
do.
that perspective you have. I appreciate that. So I know because we work with you, but again, for our viewers, for our audience, when you're engaged, what does your role look like on a day-to-day basis? I know you talked about the three different approaches, but what is that role? And I know because we've done this before, but there's back and forth. It's not just a one and done. Here you go,
No.
right?
No. So the typical format would be that I would give a heads up. Hey, a contract's coming. So your
Yeah.
team's especially good about that.
Thank you.
And I will dig in. So I know I've gotten to know what the KCI way is and what the things are that you've already negotiated and looked at. And but then I will go with fresh eyes. And I will do everything. I'll review that contract right from checking the dates. If it's 2028, I'm looking at a 2028 calendar every time there's a date mentioned. Does it line up? I'm doing the math on every single aspect of the contract. Looking from a planner's perspective, I look at the space. Does the space make sense? Can I shoot a hole in something and say, well, why wouldn't you book this or try to do this? So, and then there's the risk portion. So that's the, things like insurance and indemnification and impossibility. And I look at those from the event organizer's perspective. And then I think one of the most important parts I do is what is missing. So, and I think that's where you probably, that very first contract is, okay, it's one thing to understand what's on the paper itself, but really truly what is not on the paper that needs to be on that
Where we're
paper to
exposed, right?
protect the client.
Yeah.
And so then that's a big part of my job is to identify, okay, the group is held to cancellation terms, but the hotel hasn't included cancellation terms if they decide to cancel. So it's trying to create balance between where there's risk. So really, I do a full written review, and then I am on
And
speed
can I just say
dial.
that's
Yeah,
the part that blows my mind. We get that written review back and it's like all these pages like, oh my God, there's so much work that goes. Sorry to pause, but just right
yeah,
there, that single deliverable. If you did nothing else, I'd be like, wow, like, are we paying you enough? Because that review is so golden. But then go on because you
yeah.
don't finish there.
So then the team or the event organizer, as I said, I'm usually a secret weapon. So they go away and they are the venue facing person. They will take it verbatim and present it to the property. Others will filter out things that they maybe don't want to ask or aren't as concerned about. And that goes to the venue. They negotiate. And then another revised version comes back. And I will review and review and review. I've had contracts that have the fourth, fifth, sixth version that are coming back when there's something that is, if the venue is creating new language because I've asked for a certain clause, then I want to be able to check that. And I also go back and check that nothing else has been readjusted when we do get that revised contract. So,
Does that
yeah, it's
happen? Look over here. We made all these edits that you didn't notice that we
and
made over
and I
here.
think And I think in the days of word processing, like when I started, it was a faxed document. Let's just face that. Uh,
Yeah.
but now with word processing, contracts are so easily messed up, if you will. And yes,
Yeah.
I have seen changes in contracts that it's like, well, how come that got changed? An error, right? So it's looking to make sure that everything is still consistent from the very beginning to the end. And so whether that's email support, whether that's texting, whether that's phone
Yeah.
calls, I will absolutely jump on a Zoom call, a Teams call with the venue if we get down to a certain point and the planner says, I could really use some help. Um, what's the word? Justifying why we need this particular clause in a contract. I'll give you an example. I had an association that had been affected by a protest one of the years, and the hotel canceled the contract. And they had no cancellation terms in the contract at the time.
'Cause
So
it's
it was
rare, and
very important.
I know when we fight this, our hotels are like, "Well, why would we cancel on you?" Oh, because it can happen. Sorry to
Yeah,
interrupt, Heather, but
yeah,
we get pushback from the hotels all the time. "Why
yeah.
would we cancel on you?" Well, anyway, in your story.
Yeah, there could be protests, there could be business reasons, there could be
Right.
renovation, there could be all sorts of reasons why.
Yes.
But in this case, this particular like cancellation by the venue because of the potential for a protest was really, really important. And so I ended up on a Zoom call with the legal counsel of the venue to explain and to support and defend why this client needed this clause and this protection, because the previous incident pretty much wiped out the association because they ended up not having an event venue. They didn't have their event. They had contracts to break because of it, and there was very little reciprocal support from the venue from canceling the so it's I will help you till the nth degree to
Yeah.
protect the event organizer. So and then when it's done, I'm out till the next time.
Exactly.
So,
I love that. And I love how you talk about that bird's eye view and view. Well, wait a minute, I've seen this property before, whether it's for another
yep,
client or the same client. And Heather, we've worked with you in that capacity at some times where you just give us your initial feedback, we take it from there.
yes,
Sometimes you're with us right till the end and always in the
yep,
background. But I know personally, I've brought you into calls with hotels saying, gosh, I could really use your language. I'm not getting anywhere with these folks, or they're not hearing me, they're not listening to me, and we bring you in for that extra level of support. And it's never uh, been a bad idea. It's always been
that's
brilliant.
great to
So,
hear.
um, so Heather, obviously we're both in the industry. What do you think is the biggest misconception in our field? And maybe you want to speak specifically to venues and contracting.
Yeah, uh, I think there's I think there's a perception that a seasoned event professional is a seasoned contract person, and that we know that and that we've seen 100 contracts and we don't need to really look at them. We've looked at them before. I think that's one thing that I encounter a lot is trying to explain that it is a different lens. It's a different um, way of thinking in the events industry is to think about risk. A lot of event professionals that I've encountered don't get into the profession because of risk management. They get in it because they're they're creative, they're looking to build experiences, but yet the event contracting part is serious academic risk management, nitty gritty. And I really, even if someone has 30 years experience, I would still challenge that they have probably a lot of room for support and learning because it's always changing. The same property can give
True.
out two different contracts.
Yeah.
The same brand has very different contracts sometimes. So, if you think you've dealt with that brand before 100 times, it doesn't matter. One word can change it can nuance how that clause reads or how it would impact the client. So, I think that to me is that the risk management part is we're not as versed. Yeah, it's not the sexy part, let's face it.
No, it's true. But it goes back to that phrase you said in the beginning about our industry. I say checks and boxes. You said we're known for, and I've always said it's more than, rates and concessions. What was the phrase you said that's in
Rates,
our
dates, and
industry?
space.
Right.
Rates,
And
dates, and
that
space.
is, no matter how deep your career is, that is usually what I agree with you. I think that's what people are looking at until they meet you and realize, gosh, one of my favorite learnings from you was, and it was maybe through my team, not something I was doing directly, but anyway, I love that we actually have to check the math, that the hotel makes mistakes on the math.
Absolutely.
I wouldn't have thought to I don't know. And then you come along and teach us this stuff. I'm like, okay, all right, paying attention. So I love that. That's good. That's true. I mean, I think that's a really true misconception, and all the more, reason we can use more Heather in our lives. So you are, and speaking of more Heather in our lives, I admire you're very involved in the industry, in associations, in events, about events. And I admire that about you. Must be very time consuming. So kudos to you for doing what you do. But, a lot of these folks are going to be emerging events professionals. Do you have any recommendations on if they wanted to be more involved? Where would they start? Where would you recommend they start to get involved in the industry?
Mm. Find mentors, first of all. You can start with just an individual that you have heard of or look up to in the industry. Follow them, seek them out, be with them, be in the presence of them, right up through to, joining and allocating either, your own, if you're your own business person, then allocating professional development funds to belong to memberships, to us industry associations, to advocating that your employer provides you with a membership. There's all sorts of industry associations, MPI, site, PCMA. It's alphabet soup kind of, but
It is, yeah.
there's all sorts of industry associations, and they all have their own different little angles. So try them all out. MPI may be a great fit, but then maybe PCMA might be a better fit for something. Tap into what's local. Tap into what's virtual, especially now. There's so much that can be offered, and you can educate. I think the big thing is to not be afraid to say, I don't know, and where can I go to learn? And when you have that kind of attitude, you will find places to fit in, and you'll find resources to avail yourself up. So, yeah, I'm a big proponent of volunteering your time. You will always get it back tenfold, because your network is crucial in this industry. Relationships and like, know, and trust is so important, and you build that by becoming involved in the industry. So, yeah, find ways to connect with people in person. Maybe it's one, or maybe it's an industry association.
Yeah, all our listeners watch, they're gonna be connecting with you, Heather. They're gonna see how connected
And
you are,
bring
and
it on.
exactly, I love that.
That. I actually love, I think some of the greatest for me at this point, and I probably you will find it too, Kimberly, is being able to connect people. Um, be able to say, "Aha, I know someone that could, use your services," or, "Oh," like I love doing student interviews for like the colleges when they have to do interviews with people out in the industry. And I go,
Good, yeah.
"Oh, well, you should follow so and so," or, "Oh, you should
Yeah,
tap into this person." That's a joy to be able to do, when you're long in the industry and be able to connect people.
yeah.
And that's what you'll get out of volunteering is you will naturally get connected to peers.
I love that. That's great advice. Thank you. Well, thinking of our peers and your network and planners, I know you've been a planner and now you're a contract pro. But what's the one skill or the one trait that you believe is non-negotiable in our industry?
I'm going to sound like a broken record, but it comes back to risk literacy.
Ah, good
It's
one.
taking
Yeah,
the seriousness of what we do. Um, so many, I think, like TV shows like Say Yes to the Dress and whatever shows, that give a real spin on the glitz and the glam and the sexiness and the creativity. That's all well and good, but we have a huge responsibility in our industry when we are bringing humans together.
we are
Uh,
liable. We are
we
liable.
are, and we have to understand it's like I'm focused on contract risk, but within that contract risk, there's food risk, like foodborne allergies and,
Absolutely. Health and safety.
proper service protocols and things like that. There's emergency procedures that need to be looked at. There's so many things that our industry, I think, does not focus enough on when it comes to the severity of what could go wrong. So always be thinking, okay, I have a plan A, but I might need a plan B and I might need a plan C, and talking it through. I know I was so surprised all the time when I was planning, and I'd go into a venue and I'd say, okay, so tell me about the fire alarm. And they go, well, nobody asks
Not
about
really
that.
sure.
Or I'd,
Yeah,
I'd say, like, okay, can your security services be at the pre-conference meeting? Well, why would they need to be there? I need to understand. I have
their
700
protocol.
people in the
Yeah,
building,
yeah.
right? So I think for me, it's risk literacy, and that's how to spot risks, understanding what the risks can be, um, quantifying risk, and then being able to redirect risk. And so
Good.
I do that through contracts.
Yeah,
Others do that through teaching about, food and beverage protocols to be safe. Others do it around, people gathering an emergency and things like that. So,
yeah.
for me, risk in a contract is about shifting either, organizational risk, reputational risk, financial risk, logistical risk, knowing where those pop up in contracts and trying to protect the client as much as the supplier partner has protected themselves. So
I love
to
that,
me,
and
that's.
It sounds like we rehearsed this, and you and I both know
Nope.
we didn't. But we in Maestra, aside from contracting as a module, we have a module called risk assessment and crisis management.
Hmm.
And full disclosure, it's like when we work with you, like we've got the basics in contracting and we've got a real big note in there that says call Heather for contracting. Same thing with risk assessment and crisis management. We teach the
Mm.
basics. Are you paying attention to this? Are you paying attention to that? Do you have a crisis management plan? Do you have a risk register? But we also have a secret weapon, and they're called Power Mill, and they will be
Ah,
on this
yes.
series as well, and they're amazing, and we love Power
Wonderful.
Mill. They are the ones that will do the risk assessment for us, that will look at, the market that we're headed into and let us know, what the risk is. To your point, I mean, we have a responsibility. We are the planners. You are gathering people together, and there will be an incident. There will be. The question is to
Absolutely.
what level, to what degree, and then how prepared are you? So
Yeah.
I love that. It's like we planned that, but that's in Maestra and very important. Need to know. Okay, Heather, I love to close with it's kind of a tough one as you reflect on your career, because I think there's a lot of folks that are going to be getting career advice through this program. I hope they will. So, what is, as you reflect on your career, the best advice that you received in your career that maybe you can attribute some of your success to where you're at now?
That's like a weighted one.
It
Um,
is.
I, oh wow. Okay. So I think I can tell you through the greatest compliment that I got in the industry and the one that I will take to my grave as the greatest compliment. I had a salesperson when I was actively planning, and this is back in the 2014-ish. And I had like 9 associations I was planning for, and I was going across the country. Like, it was crazy. Um, and he said, "Do you want to know what people think of you?" And I'm like, "Okay,
Maybe
my
not.
staff's right here." And he said, "You can't be bought." And I was so proud at that moment, and I still am. One of the things I think in this industry is it's so easy to get swept up in um, the 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 industry behavior of, showing it like just I've kept my nose very clean of trying, because ultimately where it has led me is that I'm a trusted voice for both supplier partner and planning. And that's because it's just the way I'm wired, first of all. Very important to me to be seen as neutral, to not feel like I owe something to someone, and that I'm not making the best business decision, or I'm not, defending a client, and why they need something because there's something in it for me. So I think for me, it is really, really stay focused on what your ethics are and what your internal values are, because this industry is ripe with opportunities to um,
Take advantage of the
take
offerings that
advantage
are
of.
out there. Yeah, yeah, and I've always known you to work with the highest level of integrity, and that is so important. And I'll put the word out there. Kickbacks are in this industry everywhere,
They
and
are.
from working with us, we don't. If there's a commission, here's an interesting one. If there's a commission that we are receiving, it is because we have agreed on that with the client, and we have that in writing with the client. I don't know if
Yes.
you worked with us on this one. Maybe you did. But we were working with a client, taking it over from taking over their contracting and their sourcing from another agency. And as we were presenting the final clean contract ready for our client to sign, the commission was in there and it was laid out clearly. And, in a separate contract, I had laid it out, but he forgot that we would reimburse the commission would go back to them. So we were collecting the commission on their behalf because of our IATA number, go back to them. He forgot that part. Anyway, he goes and he says, the only thing is, he says, I see this part about the commission and that's a surprise to me. I'm like, okay, wait, whoa, no surprise. Like we have it. He's like, oh, that's right. That's right. He said, sorry, we just didn't have that last year. And I said, but you did have that last year. He said, no, we didn't. And he's looking at his contract, which had been faxed to him. And that part had been hidden by his event planner.
Previous agency. Yeah.
And I had a copy of the contract, maybe I don't know how I got it, but I had a previous copy and I said, it's right here. And so it happens.
It
And we
does.
don't operate that way. You don't operate that way. Kickbacks are a bad thing. And I love that you can't be bought. You have so much integrity.
Well, but I think if you want longevity in the industry, being seen as a trusted person that makes the best decision in the moment, not for what is owed to you or what you might get out of it, will serve you extremely well for longevity. This industry is relationship based, and as I said, it's the know, the like, and the trust that we do business with, and that to me, that trust is really where I hang my hat. I want to be trusted by my clients, and I want to be trusted by the supplier partners in general. So
It is
yeah,
such a
that's a
pleasure working with you, Heather. Thank
uh,
you so much. I love that. The highest integrity and the smartest contracting person on the planet. Thank you, Heather.
you are way too kind, Kimberly.
Nice to
Thank
see you
you.
again. Thank you.
That brings us to the end of today's conversation with Heather Reid from Planner Protect. Thank you, Heather, for sharing your experience, your wisdom, and such great advice we can apply immediately to our hotel contracting practices. Your insights into the liability we carry as planners when committing to the terms and conditions of a contract are incredibly valuable for anyone working in corporate events. If you'd like to see more of what Heather is up to, you can find her at plannerprotect.ca, where she shares more pro tips on hotel contracting. Thank you for joining us today. We'll see you next time on Interviews with the Pros.